So I have you just for a few minutes, and what I want to talk to you about, so I'm going to tell you about the flag placement at the time of death for a veteran. We're going to circle back and talk about the etiquette and why, and then I'm going to ask you some questions at the end. So real quick, number one is, out of the 4 or 5 major components of the military, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, which of those components do you think in the 8 years that we've been alive that we've cared for the most?
Army.
Army, number 1.
Oh.
Air Force?
2, Navy.
Oh.
3, Marines. 4, Air Force. So just some facts to start with. Number 1, 16 million have served in World War II. Out of that 16 million, my numbers were off yesterday, there's 8,000 left who have served in World War II. 600 left in Dallas County.
That's what I say. I feel like we have a lot.
So what I'm saying is that era is fast disappearing. To right now, about 2.3% of people serve in the military in some capacity, whether it's active National Guard, reserves, or even Merchant Marine. So that's a very small number. And the reason why I want to mention that is we get to care for this kind of population that have done something that every component does. Every military member begins their service by doing this. They raise their hand and they do what?
Take it out.
They take an oath. I swear to protect and defend my country from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. I did that in 2007 when I was 44. Yeah, who was smoking crack then? And I left my church I was pastoring in Rowlett, Texas to go active duty at Fort Hood. Now, I was able to serve 15 years. I wasn't able to get in a full 20, so I don't get a pension, right? I don't get anything out of it other than, hey, I'm glad I served. But many of our veterans have put in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years, and they all tend to minimize the number, like, oh, I only served. So what we try to do at the end of life is circle back and give them the honors that are due. It might seem like a small thing, but unless you've done it and seen the power in this moment, you're missing it. If you haven't done it, it's powerful. So basically it's this. We give each of you who would be involved in the pronouncing, we give you a flag. We actually give you 2. Why do you think we give you 2? Why do you think we give you 2 flags? $100.
Out of his pocket.
Give it to the family, or do you have a spare?
For the
Only
side.
2 I can think of.
Those are great. So the reason why we give you 2 flags is what happens, according to the Constitution, what happens if you drop a flag?
Oh,
You have to burn it. So we have got feedback in the 8 years of a time when someone went to pronounce, dropped the flag, and then they put the flag on the body. So some people say, well, why are we doing a flag when if Golden Gate comes, they have this blanket that has dual sides. One might have something and the other might have a flag. Why do we go the extra step? Because I've asked the guys at Golden Gate, how often does that blanket get washed? Never. So we try to take the extra step to say, we're going to honor your loved one, male or female. I've actually had 2 of my daughters serve with me in the Army at the same time. I was stationed at Fort Hood in 2010, and one of my daughters, who became a major later, was stationed with me. I was preaching in chapel at Fort Hood as a brand new lieutenant, and my my colonel asked me, hey, where's your daughter in chapel today? I said, well, they grew up hearing me preach in the church that I was pastoring. He goes, oh, okay. He saw her later, a week later in the PX, and said to her name was Amanda, Amanda, I heard your dad preach and did a great job. Did you hear him? And she said, no. Well, why weren't you in chapel? She goes, I've heard all my dad's sermons forever. He doesn't have anything new. So I want to let you know how powerful this moment is. How many of you have actually done this? How was your experience with this? What was it like?
It's very humbling. It's very humbling. Like a kind of a peace goes over, because deaths are typically kind of chaotic. But it's very humbling, and the family really truly enjoys it.
So I think, and you can correct me, the key is in the approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the key is in the approach. One of the things we don't do is do this. We make sure that the stars are aligned toward the heart, which you'll see this is the accurate portrayal. And I'll take a little bit of time. I know it sounds anal retentive, but I'll do this. What do you think's happening?
You're showing respect.
So are people quick, if they're in this moment, are people like, hey, let's get this show on the road, let's get out of here? They want to loiter. They want to soak in the moment. This is another ritual that we go through to help people process grief. And I am telling you, because we call families at month 1, 3, 6, 9, 11, and 13, during that time, typically the family will say, Mike, I remember when you or another person did the flag ceremony for my loved one. It was very powerful. Thank you. They'll mention it. We typically ask those who come to remove the body to keep the head uncovered so we can put the flag on them like this. And I'll once I do this, I'll stand back and I'll just let the family have time. Some of them will recall stories of their loved one. It might be from, hey, my dad raised his hand and like he was compelled to serve. He was in Vietnam, so he was in the draft and he didn't go to Canada. And then he actually went back twice to Vietnam. And they'll just linger and the stories will percolate. So we give them time to be able to, right, live in the moment. And then have this flag represent. Now, the reason why the flag is so critical is what you may not know is, Kathy, your husband was Navy?
Yeah.
How many of you have had military members in your family? What were they in, if you can? Marines? Navy?
Navy, Air Force,
Wow.
Super duty. Anybody else?
Navy, Air Force, Marines.
So,
Marines and Navy.
what you may not understand, because of experience, is every morning and every night, for every person who's served, they look at the flag. In the morning, they'll turn their body, maybe in a formation, and they'll look at the flag, and this song will play called Reveille. You know the words? Oh yeah.
No, that's not the word.
Okay, no, I didn't
You
know.
know who knew the words yesterday?
Who?
Rebel.
Oh.
And I thought, isn't that ironic? Revelry, and Rebel knows all the words to revelry.
It's time to get up, time to get up, time to get up in the morning, like that. And they salute. And when the song is done, you'll hear a trumpeter or someone else say, "Order arms," and then they lower their hand. The end of the battle day, they'll do the same thing. They'll face the flag, they'll salute, and they'll play another song called Taps. Yes. And the words are very somber. Like they're not, "Yay, let's go get them." They're, And what do most soldiers think about at the end of the day when you're doing this? I wonder what they're serving for dinner. So you approach the flag the same way that they would have in their military career. We do it with honor. And again, we're not trying to lengthen this, but we're just trying to say that it was a significant thing to be able to raise their hands, swear to protect and defend their country. And we're hoping that at least their relationship with the VA and other military sources has provided them with some resources after they've served their country honorably. Well, even if they haven't, we want the last memory of the body that they loved so much to be given on. So we put this flag at their chin, we give them moments, and then at the time that's appropriate, in the back of your sheet, if you'll turn it over, because you might ask, well, what do I say? So take a look at the back of the sheet. Number one is, you could have a moment of silence. And you could literally say, let's have a moment of silence. Because silence is very powerful, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's palpable. You could feel it. You could say a prayer in your faith tradition, whatever it is. Number three, you can ask others who are present to share words of appreciation. Because it might be their great-grandfather or their grandfather or their father. or their brother, sister, mother, cousin, whoever it is. 4, you can offer words of dedication. And I've given you some starters. You don't have to repeat this, you can. They're just my words. Or 4D is offer your own words of comfort and dedication, because you've served this family, you've served this patient. So it could be framed in the words, hey, I remember them by, we used to talk about X. That's very powerful for you. So my words there are just, options, and hopefully they're conversation starters. Once we place the flag and go through this process particularly, we then work and negotiate with whoever's transferring the body, that at that time we'll put the blanket back up over the head, cover the body with the flag, and then they'll move out. Even if it's 10 feet from the house to the funeral vehicle, typically is a van. And you've seen these people come in the middle of the night, right? We actually had 2 guys come to pick up a body of, her name was Mary Snyder in Rockwall, and the 2 guys were drunk.
Oh.
So me and Dick, her husband, had to take the body out to the car, call this funeral home, who I won't mention, and say, unfortunately, the 2 guys that you sent are poisoned. They're 3 sheets to the wind. And these guys both sat in the front seat and passed out. So we had to wait until another person from the company came, and he gave, oh my gosh, I wouldn't even want to publish what he said to these guys. But Mary wasn't a veteran, but if she had been, that impact would have been lasting. Dick was able to forgive, and he was able to move on, and we met for a year every week, Dick Snyder. But once whoever we've contracted to remove the body, they'll take it to the funeral vehicle, and they can either leave this flag on, or they can fold it up and give it to the family. It really depends what the family wants. Now, how many of you have seen this process? Right? So if you're in a facility, let's say like Royce City Medical, what do you think might happen when they wheel the body out with the flag on?
People pay attention. Yeah.
And people go
Very
stand back.
nervous.
So typically you'll have somebody in leadership say, hey, we have something significant happening. And people will line the walls.
It's called an honor walk, right?
It is an honor walk. We did this with a guy over at Rowlett Health and Rehab. His wife passed, and then we took care of him. His last name was Janeski. But he was brought out at like 11:30 at night. But they still got all the staff who were awake and alert. They got them to line, 7 of the halls of Rowlett Health and Rehab.
Staff that were waking
I
up.
was about to say, man, I hope all the stuff
I'm just saying, you know how it goes, right? And they stood in the wall, and some of them who didn't have any military service stood at attention. And they reciprocally just said, this deserves recognition. And they wheeled them out. Now, there's 2 things I want to mention. I have this on the sheet. Let's just say that the body is going to be cremated. Typically, if the person you've cared for is going to be cremated, they don't get a flag. But they can get one at any post office, free. And the flags that they have aren't like this $8 Econo flag that we get from Amazon. They're cloth woven, and typically every flag that's at the post office has been flown over the state capitol in Austin. So they're folded in a triangle, and sometimes they have like a shadow box, sometimes they don't, but they can be given free. As long as you can present, the family presents the dismissal papers from the military called the DD-214. So they can get a flag. And typically later, they'll put it in like a glass shadow box and put it up on the mantle or hang it up or display it in some way. So I want to let you know how powerful this moment is. It might seem small, trivial, it might seem, it doesn't mean much, but I am telling you, by experience doing this 8 years here, families, when we call it month 1, 3, 6, 9, 11, 13, they will talk about it. And they will say, I'm so grateful for Hope Healthcare and the dedicated staff who gave my mother, father, sister, brother, cousin, whoever it is, honor. And you get to be a part of that. So thank you very much. If you have any questions past this, please contact me. And I'm also availing myself that on the east side as well as the west, if you don't feel comfortable in doing this, call me I don't care if it's 2 a.m, I will come and give honors. And if I can find my Class A dress blues, I'll wear them. So typically I come in my Class Bs, which are my green fatigues and hat, because my dress blues, number one, I couldn't fit into. And number two, most people recognize that uniform. So I'll come in that uniform to be able to give honors. But here's the thing that's your involvement that's helpful. So we started on the other side to create an honor wall. It's just starting. It's not the way I want it to look long term. Long term, I want it to be able to have a display case where it has a computer screen where we can press a family's name, and up on the wall, Chad doesn't know how much this is going to cost, but it will cost, is going to be projected their pictures as well as military scenes behind, typifying the service time, the service era that they served in. That's kind of like the long term. That's about a $8-10 grand investment. But that's kind of like our long-term goal. Right now, we just have the walls painted, some flags up. We have the missing in action POW table. And we would love, long-term, think about this with me. We would love this place to be a place where long after they've gone to the graveside, that they come here yearly to honor, to memorialize their loved one. And that we can have a significant moment in their lives long term, not just, Hope Healthcare served us. But what we need for you are pictures. I have just a handful of pictures at the very bottom of the screen that are actually the patients we serve. What I need from you is a picture. I haven't had a family yet say no. Maybe you'll find that, typically not. We already get their name, signed off on papers when they have consents. But we need a picture, and if you send that picture to me like this, we're gonna put that up on their honor wall with their military picture. When we give them a coin, because we give them all a challenge coin when they come on service, and then the third picture will be this. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike, we appreciate you.